Hi, my name's Isaac Shutt. I'm an estate planning attorney. I'm licensed to practice law both in Texas and in Wyoming. Today I'm going to talk about one of my favorite topics, and that's trusts, and more specifically, revocable living trusts. Now, over the years, I've become a huge fan of revocable living trusts. They have become so popular, and in this video, I'll talk about just a few of the reasons that clients find them so attractive. So, number one is that a trust, if properly done, can avoid a will probate. See, a lot of people don't know that when you pass away, if all you have is a last will and testament, that last will and testament does not automatically transfer all of your assets to your beneficiaries. The will has to go through a legal process called probate, and you have to have a probate attorney, or your relatives have to have a probate attorney, and it'll go to a probate judge. And so there's some time and money involved there and some hassle for your loved ones after you pass away. If you have a properly done trust, your relatives won't need to go through that legal process when you pass away. But notice I said it has to be properly done. Next, trusts do a great job of preserving some privacy. So I don't want to sound like I'm some really cynical person or things like that, but a lot of our clients would like to keep as much information out of the public record as possible. So if you have a will that's going through probate, a lot of those probates will require an estate inventory to be filed, which means if you have a will probate, all of your assets and your bank information and things like that are going to be in the public record. And a lot of our clients are not interested in that. And so you get some enhanced privacy when you have a trust versus a will. Also, when you really crunch the numbers, having a trust is actually overall less expensive than having a last will and testament. And that's because even though it costs a little bit more to establish a trust versus having a last will and testament, in the long run, it will end up costing less because it's actually easier to update a trust than it is a last will and testament. And then also, like I said, when you pass away, your relatives won't have to pay thousands of dollars in court costs and legal fees because if it's done correctly, that entire probate legal process has been bypassed. Another reason that trusts are so popular is that they're virtually automated, or at least if it's done right, it's virtually automated. Here's what I mean by that. When you think of a trust, what you're really talking about is the trust agreement, and that's the document that's prepared by your attorney. Now, a will might be anywhere from 2 to 10 pages, and a trust is usually twice as long, if not more. But what that's doing, that trust agreement is doing, is laying out all the different variations of what might happen. So it spells out, if I become incapacitated, here's what's going to happen. If I pass away, here's what's going to happen. And so all of that process of what's going to happen to your assets or your care is spelled out in the document. And that's a huge comfort to family members because they don't want their relatives, like our clients, don't want their relatives being stressed out about what am I supposed to be doing now? Well, the trust document automates that and lays out here's what's supposed to be happening. And so it takes a lot of the stress out of your loved ones if something happens to you. Another huge benefit to having a trust is the automation that it provides. You know, so if you have a will instead of a trust, that will's going to go through probate court, and then we have state laws that sort of dictate what's going to happen largely with your assets and that process. Whereas if you have a trust, you get to decide what's going to happen. And it's all laid out in your trust agreement. So, by the way, the trust agreement is the document that the estate planning attorney provides for you. And in that trust document, it'll be really specific in stating, here's what's going to happen in each scenario. And then there's no court involvement, there's no judges, there's none of that. It's just all sort of automated per the terms of that trust agreement. So that's really cool because it minimizes the stress on your family because they don't have to guess what they're supposed to be doing. They don't have a bunch of legal fees. They don't have a judge telling them what to do. It's all sort of automated and laid out for them. So a lot of our clients find that really attractive. You know, another thing that's really popular about trusts is that they're so much more customizable than a will. A will basically says, I die, here's who gets it. In our office, we refer to them as dumb documents. That doesn't mean it's bad to have a will, but the trust is just so much more customizable and custom to each client. And so that's really nice. There are no two families that are exactly alike, and so it sort of makes sense that the trust should be custom to you and your relatives to do what you want and what you would prefer. And so the customization with the trust is just really sort of unreal. The state legislature sets some sort of outer bounds and says, yeah, you can't do these few things with the trust, but that's really narrow. You can do all kinds of awesome stuff in giving away assets through a trust. Let me give you an example of some of the more unique things that our clients have requested over the years. For example, we've had clients who've come in and said, you know what, I love all my 3 kids, but one of them has a drug problem. Well, that doesn't mean that you just have to cut that person out as a beneficiary. If you were using a will, you would not be real inclined to give 1/3 of your estate assets to somebody who's got a serious drug problem, because that may actually not be super beneficial. But with a trust, maybe that trust agreement says that that beneficiary who's got a substance abuse problem won't get a lump sum distribution, but may get money over time. So they wouldn't be able to harm themselves with a huge lump sum of cash. Or maybe they have to have a successful drug test, which is something we've done in a customized trust for a client. So it's like, hey, if you want your quarterly distribution, you have to have a successful drug test. So that's just an example of a really unique thing that you can do with the trust. So we want you to come to our office as a blank slate and say, yeah, in the dream scenario, here's how our estate would go after we're gone. And then we customize that to you. So that's really cool. And the sky is pretty much the limit. So let me summarize the benefits of a trust. So clients love trust because they may avoid a will probate when they pass away, which means that your family wouldn't have to go through that expensive legal process of the will being probated when you pass away. The trust is also a lot better when it comes to privacy. And so a lot of our clients are interested in keeping things out of the public record, and a trust can help with that. Also, trusts give a lot of automation. So instead of, if something happens to you, having to go to an attorney and having a judge or state law dictate what's going to happen, your trust agreement sort of automates what would happen if you become incapacitated or pass away, which minimizes stress to a large degree. And then last but not least, trusts are so much more customizable than a will only. So a will is really regimented under state law. Your will kind of says what it needs to say, whereas a trust is super custom to every client because there isn't necessarily one cookie cutter plan that's best for you and for your family. Oh, and last, there also is overall a cost savings potentially to having a trust. So sometimes when you meet with an estate planning attorney, you might see that the initial or startup cost is a little bit higher for having a trust-based estate plan instead of a wills-based plan. But what you'll learn and what you would hear from your friends and relatives is that the overall cost in the long run of having a trust may actually be lower because it's easier to make updates to a trust over time. And then also you do have that probate avoidance. And so you're saving thousands of dollars for your relatives if something should happen to you by having the trust instead of just a will. I hope you found this video helpful. Again, my name is Isaac Shutt. I'm an estate planning attorney who's licensed to practice law both in Texas and in Wyoming.